Welcome back to Open Line as we are rounding out this hour talking about the pork report from the Beacon Center. Thank you for being with us, by the way. And Ron Schultes is here too, the policy director of the Beacon Center. We do have Paul on the line. I want to get to him. And by the way, feel free to call in. We've got a couple more minutes to take your call. 615-737-PLUS is the number. Paul, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, my father-in-law was the general counsel for Nashville Electric Service back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He was the law partner of Beverly Browley before he became mayor, so they knew one another quite well. But my father-in-law told me a long time ago that Nashville Electric Service, it's not in business to make a profit, he said, although it does. Well, the profit that they make could go back into the coffers to pay for the people, to help pay for the folks that can't pay their electric bills. And you were the crux of this whole thing, and let's not sugarcoat anything. We know that there's power people in Nashville. All they want to do is make money, and they know how to dip their little fingers into that TIF fund, and they know people up there in the council and in the mayor's office, and they know how to suck up to them, and it's just not right. I mean, they may as well all be drug dealers to me.
That's a strong language right there, Paul. Yeah.
I know, but I just couldn't help saying it like that. It's just a travesty, and there ought not be a shortfall on any financial burden on the city of Nashville. We all ought to be and able to hang wreaths on our doors and have a Christmas tree paid for, use our money for anything we want, yet people are taking away our funds that are needed in critical areas elsewhere. And it's just been, let's face it, it's a problem of mismanagement, and it always is.
Yeah.
That's how businesses fail, because they're all mismanaged.
And I think that has opened a lot of eyes here in the city recently. Paul, thank you for your call, by the way. And I think his call goes in line with Reverend Fuzz's and everyone else who's kind of shaking their head at all of our news reports lately, saying Nashville's broke. The state is saying, we'll take you over if you can't fix it and you can't balance this budget. We're going to step in.
Yeah. We did exit polling in the first round of the mayor election earlier this year, and the number one thing by a far margin that people voted on was fiscal responsibility. Can you pay for it? It's great if you can, if you want to bring certain company or bring the NFL draft, but can you pay for it? And the answer has been no, and now the goose has come home to cook, and we don't have the money to pay for it. And unfortunately, there's going to be tough choices, and it's going to be a lot of pain, and it's going to take a lot of time to fix that issue.
And it's really going to be interesting, because a lot of people have said that Mayor Cooper is the kind of guy who will go line by line. He's a policy guy. He is going to count every penny, which is what's needed right now. But also, he sat on that council for a long time. Yeah,
I mean, there's like I said, this has been a problem that has happened over decades, and so we need to hold all of our elected officials accountable and ask them to put the long-term health of our city as their top priority, and that's not what has happened.
I did notice in here that a couple of things where you would chastise a city or a county for raising property taxes and then spend on something else. We've had Bob Mendez from the council in here, and he said, we've got to raise property taxes. This is coming down the pike. It's going to have to happen. We haven't done it in years upon years. Do you think that's appropriate for Nashville, or will the Beacon Center say,
Well, I think what we see is, and as I mentioned earlier, I think people would be okay if it meant that our higher property taxes went to schools, it went to roads. But as this report shows, that's not the case. And so first, you've got to deal with the spending before you can deal with the taxes, because what will happen is if we do raise property taxes, that extra revenue is just going to be spent on other things that don't solve the problem anyways. So you have to at least create that discipline first, because otherwise you're going to end up 2 to 3 years down the road in the exact same situation and asking voters to suffer another property tax hike.
Yeah. Taylor, tell me that information you gave me just again. George on line 1. Okay, sorry about that. George, you are on the line right now. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say that this guy gave two examples. I defy anybody to tell me anywhere where the government overspends, it's always because they turn something over to the private sector. For example, that this youth thing where they allow these kids to get out. There's a very good example right there, and he gave 2 good examples of himself there. That's the problem. Every time they want to turn something over to the private sector, they have cost overruns. And another comment, I just had a thought the other day that if having Nashville known as the country music capital, I was thinking, well, that's probably a repellent to a lot of people. I mean, actually, it's repellent to the most of the people in this country. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you, George. We appreciate you calling in. Our time is dwindling, so I want to go over just a few more of these that I think will strike a chord with people, so to speak. One is the incentives doled out to the film and movie industry. They kind of fall flat.
That's right. We actually did a report 2 years ago on this exact issue, on the money that we give to film companies to come to Tennessee and film part or all of a movie. And we found that 40%, so almost half of the films we give money to, don't make as much money at the box office as we give them in a grant.
Kidding.
No.
And like when I think you guys looked at the show Nashville, which was like they got 50 million or so.
Absolutely. Ooh. It's the largest grant that we've ever given to one show. And what we've seen is that time and time again, sure, this helps the movie industry. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but it doesn't help the taxpayers. They never pay for itself. In fact, the State Department even did a study and showed on average these were filmed 20 cents on the dollar. So our taxpayers give $1 to a Hollywood corporation, and then we get 20 cents in tax revenue on the back end of it. That's not a good deal.
And if you were looking to invest in a stock or so, you wouldn't invest if you knew that was the return.
Nope, no one ever would.
Another one that you highlighted deals with beer. Who doesn't love beer, right?
Absolutely. I love beer. I make my own beer, actually.
Ooh, fancy.
My wife doesn't like it when I take up the whole fridge doing so, but what we shouldn't be doing is picking one brewery to get tax dollars and not the rest. So one example that we highlight is Wiseacre, which is a brewery in Memphis that got a tax deal for about I think $1.5 million. There are multiple microbreweries in Memphis.
Yeah.
Yet now they're being asked to pay taxes to help fund their competition, and I think Memphis constituents should be able to go there and get a free round. They paid for it anyways, but they're not going to be able to.
Why were they picked? I mean, how did this happen? The
idea that we're going to create a cool, new, trendy spot, right? That with a couple of jobs, and that's what they're doing. They're building this new beer garden place, but that's really not the role of government, and especially, ideally, we shouldn't be giving out to any beer gardens anyways, right? Or breweries, but especially when we're picking one, and that's that unlevel playing field that government shouldn't be creating.
All right, we have to go to break. We will be right back after this to wrap things up.